Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today I'm here at Phoenix's South Mountain with the Apollo City Pro to see if this scooter has what it takes to make it up our endurance hill climb, which, if all goes well, should take us upwards of 18 to 1900 feet in elevation gain. Now I am going to be tracking today's ride with Garmin GPS, which is what I use to track all of our electric scooter and e-bike range tests as well as hill climb tests. So that should give us a very accurate and consistent way to track this ride. Now I will be cruising around in sport mode, and I did go into the app and I set the acceleration strength to 7 out of 10 and the regenerative braking strength to 5 out of 10, which we won't really worry too much about until we start heading back down the mountain today. Temperature wise, it is about 50 degrees or so Fahrenheit. Nice cool morning, and it looks like the sky's clearing up. It's been absolutely windy here the last day or so, and anyways, looks like all that's cleared up. Now this Apollo City Pro is a dual motor scooter. Each one of these motors is 500 nominal watts and can peak at 1000 watts per motor, so you're looking at 2000 watts of peak power on this scooter. Now one of the things that I'm always concerned about with this hill climb is going to be battery. Because a lot of times these scooters have a tendency to burn right through that battery because of the amount of stress that we're putting the scooter through. That's part of the reason why I don't have acceleration strength set to 10 out of 10. But on this particular scooter, we have a 48 volt, 20 amp hour battery, which is good for 960 watt hours of capacity, which goes above and beyond our typical commuter scooter that we take up here. So for today's ride, I don't have the speed restricted. You know, normally with my commuter scooters with smaller batteries, speed is restricted at 20 miles an hour, but with a lot of these dual motor scooters, I leave it unrestricted. And so far, this Apollo City Pro is doing a fantastic job of climbing this mountain. You know, I take all of my scooters through a gauntlet of tests to see, what are the limits of these scooters. And one of the tests that I did with this scooter is the extreme hill climb test. That's over 23% grade. I'll put a link to that video up above as well as in the description below for you to go check that out. We've also done our range test with this scooter, as well as, some rainy, snowy rides, which I don't always get the opportunity to do, especially out here in the desert. But a couple weeks back, I went up to Flagstaff for a little family vacation, brought the scooter along with me, and it just so happened that it was snowing up there. So I'll include a link above for that as well. Now, one thing I will say is that, and this is probably one of the more unrealistic tests that I do with these scooters. A lot of times people are using these to cruise around the city. But me, I like to put these things to the limit, see what they're really capable of. All right, little downhill section, then we're gonna go into a relatively grueling climb here in what I call the shadow of the mountain. And you're gonna start to see it here when we come around this turn. But that is a very long hill climb we're about to go into right now. And there it is. So there's the mountain ahead of us. We are in the shadow of the mountain right now. And this is going to be a very long stretch of hill climb. And then after that, we'll have a little downhill section. And then we'll make our way up to our first lookout point, which is going to be Dobbins Lookout. All right. Throttle is all the way in. And we're cruising. I don't know if you can see it, but we've got beautiful views of the Phoenix metro area out there to the left. This thing's handling these mountain curves, no problem at all. That's one of the things that I love about these commuter scooters with dual motors and more than enough power for your typical daily commute, is that they give you the flexibility to go out and tackle some crazy stuff like we're doing today. Now this scooter does have 10-inch tires with street tread, and so far they're very grippy, doing a really good job here on this road. We've also got full suspension, so we got dual coil spring with rubber dampening in the rear, as well as a single coil spring up front with rubber dampening as well. And that makes for a very comfortable, and one of the most important things for me, a very quiet ride. Sometimes scooters will have straight coils with zero dampening, and you get a lot of like metal clunking sounds and things like that. Not so with this scooter. Very quiet ride. Go ahead and take advantage of our regenerative brake on the way down here before we go into the next climb. Lots of folks out and about today taking advantage of this beautiful weather while it lasts. You know, we're in March at this point, end of April, beginning of May, it starts getting toasty. And then we're right into the thick of summer again, which is absolutely brutal here in the Phoenix metro area. It's the hottest big city in the United States. And so it's usually during those months where you question, you know, your life decisions when living in a place like this. But, you know, fall, winter, spring, you can't beat it. This is going to be a particularly steep section here before we get to this intersection. Throttle's all the way in. All right, we're powering right through. Okay, we are clear. And here we go. Made our left turn, heading on up to Dobbins Lookout. A couple steep sections here, but the steepest section will be on our way to Gila Valley Lookout. That there is by far the steepest portion of this ride. But we still got a ways to go till we get there. All right, folks. We have officially arrived at our first lookout point, Dobbins Lookout. We'll pull over here and take a look at some of the views. All right, so there you have it. That's our first lookout point. You got the downtown Phoenix, uptown Phoenix right out there. Camelback Mountain, Piastoa Peak. And then out there is actually a lookout point that's been closed since the 90s. One of these days I'm gonna head out that way and see what kind of views you have up there. But anyways, there's our glorious Apollo City Pro. Dual motor city scooter here tackling mountains. And then here we've got some more views. All right, another glorious day. Let's go ahead and head on over to Buena Vista Lookout. So here we go. For all of you keeping track, we're at about 5.85 miles. That's the distance it took us to get to this first lookout point. Then we'll do a mileage check-in at our second lookout point. So what I'm going to do is take full advantage of our regenerative braking here on the way down, and then we're going to be making a left here to head over to the road for our next lookout. Suspension's doing a pretty decent job of absorbing a lot of these big cracks in the road, which is always nice to have, because if you had no suspension on these roads, it's a little bit of a jarring experience. All right, here we go. Nice little hill here. And here we go, a little bit of a climb on our way up to Buena Vista Lookout. So one of the other scooters I took up this mountain, I actually took a bunch up here, but the other Apollo scooter I brought up here is the Apollo Go, which I've made an entire review series on that scooter. Bunch of videos. It's actually my favorite portable, you know, city dual motor commuter scooter. And only because it's so small, lightweight, relatively speaking. It packs a lot of punch, but that's another scooter that I brought up here, and it did really well. I believe, if I recall correctly, it made it up to 2 out of our 3 lookout points, not because it didn't have the power to make it up, but we were running into issues with the battery. Now, in retrospect, if I did that again, that same ride again, it's possible I'd make it to all 3 lookout points. It's just, you know, it's 9.5 miles all the way to the top, and the road is closed to cars on Sundays here, at least for the first 5 hours of the day. And so anyways, didn't want to get stranded. Yeah, that's the one fear I have, is coming out here and running out of power, you know. Yeah, you know, you're at the top of a mountain and you think, oh yeah, you'll just cruise right down, you'll be fine. But the problem is there's up and downhill sections here, and so it's a lot of walking. All right, cruise on through here. Definitely glad I have a suspension coming through this part, because these are some gnarly cracks in the road. All right, folks. So we are now pulling into Buena Vista Lookout. It's our second lookout point. Lookout point number 2 here. We are at 7.47 miles so far on this ride. As you can see, another beautiful view of the Phoenix Metro. There's a nice little lookout point there, the bench. But anyways, maybe next time up here we'll head on out that way. Anyways, fantastic views. Let's go ahead and head on up to our third lookout point, which will be Gila Valley Lookout. All right, on our way up to our third lookout point. We've got 3 out of 5 battery bars remaining so far. So plenty of juice in the tank. You know, I've got all these Bluetooth devices connected to my phone right now, and so we'll get a read on the percentage when we get to the top of Gila Valley Lookout. And then we'll see how much that battery drains on the way back down the mountain while using our regenerative braking. See how much power we put back into that battery. It's gonna be a little bit of a steep section coming up here. As we go over this ridge, throttle is all the way in. Here we go. Let's see how we do on this. Is a little preview of what's to come. All right, made it right up and over that. No problem at all. Out and to the right there is the antennas at the top of South Mountain. We'll be more or less on their level here once we get to that third lookout point. Nice, smooth riding scooter. So far, it's handling this hill climb beautifully. Go ahead and use our bell here. On your left. On your left. All right, folks, this is the steep section. You know, obviously this is going to be nowhere near as steep as our extreme hill climb test. However, after riding up this mountain, you know, what will be almost 9.5 miles, scooter's under a lot of load, and so we're at the bottom portion of the battery, scaling what is a relatively steep incline. You know, I think 10 to 12% is the steepest that we see on this climb. Right now, throttle is all the way in. Scooter is actually beeping at us. I'll take a look at what that is here in a moment. I'm sure the app will tell us what that is. All right, we're coming in here. I'm gonna pull over to the side real quick. and see what that beeping is all about. Alright folks, so we are here with the Apollo City Pro. Looks like we got a code 9 error, which is, you know, looking at the manual, I'm surprised I have service up here, which is interesting because you've got all these antennas and everything, and you think, oh, you should have perfect service. It's actually really spotty, and in most places I don't. But I was able to check the manual online, and it is a controller error, likely an overheating controller. So the scooter automatically puts itself in a protection mode and reduces power output. That way you don't do any harm to the scooter. And obviously we are climbing what is a very steep incline, and the end is right there. So I'm going to just give this a few minutes to cool down a little bit. Motor temperatures, I was showing something like 152 degrees Fahrenheit. But anyways, I quit out of the app, I went back into it, and right now there's some internet connectivity issues where I'm at. So anyways, we'll let this cool down, we'll head on up to the top, and then we'll begin our glide down the mountain. All right. We gave that a couple minutes to cool down a little bit. But anyways, here we go. South Mountain Preserve, Gila Valley Lookout. This is our third lookout point, folks, and we have made it up. We'll go ahead and pull over to the side and see how we did. All right, folks, so here we are. Gila Valley Lookout. There's those antennas. We're more or less on their level at this point. Never gets old. It's one heck of a hill climb, that's for sure. You can see the road down there, that windy, steep road that we just climbed. Then on this side, you've got another view of the entire metro area. So 180-degree views here of the city. Definitely have to look at coming out here at night sometime. I don't know what time the gates close, but anyways, I'll find out. If it is open, maybe we'll do a little night ride up here. All right, so from a battery percentage standpoint, it looks like we're sitting at 48%, and the controller temperature has dropped down to 129 degrees Fahrenheit, motor temperature 131 degrees Fahrenheit. So things have cooled down substantially, and I don't suspect we'll have any kind of issues coming down the mountain because, you know, we're barely going to be using the motor. It's basically going to be regenerative brake time. So. And as of right now, we are 9.4 miles into our ride. So 9.4 miles up this mountain, and it should be about 8.5 all the way back down. So anyways, we'll see how this scooter does. I'm gonna go ahead and get my gear back on, and we'll head on out. All right, so this is the fun part, coming down the mountain. This is gonna give us ample opportunity to test out the brakes on this scooter, specifically the regenerative brakes. In the app, I have our regenerative brake strength set to 5 out of 10. So as you can see, you know, the benefit of coming up a mountain like this is that you can stress test these scooters and see what their limits are. You know, I've had a couple other scooters overheat on the way up this mountain. One of them was the NIU KQI 300X, and the other one was a Segway 9-Bot Max G2 after some of their latest firmware updates. But anyways, you know, with a lot of these scooters, their BMS has all kinds of protections built into them, and the controllers have protections built into them. You know, so if, you know, temperatures spike out of range, it reduces output to the scooter. So as you saw with that beeping, we didn't just lose power, it was just in a reduced power output state until that controller temperature goes back down, which it did, and as you can see, we're cruising around beautifully. All right, here's a steep little climb up and over the ridge. We'll see Camelback Mountain, and that's when we know we're over this section. And there you go, Camelback Mountain straight ahead. That's a beautiful hike. Gives you 360-degree views of the Phoenix metro area. Little downhill straightaway here. And at the end of this, we'll test out these manual drum brakes that we've got both in the front and the rear. Oh yeah, plenty of stopping power with those. The nice thing here is that, yeah, you got the drum brakes, but you've also got electronic braking in both motors, so both of those combined make for excellent stopping power. There we go, nice little turn. As you can see, somebody plowed into that guardrail. No, thank you. There's a surprising amount of accidents that happen up here with people riding over the edge of cliffs and stuff, taking turns too fast or maybe distracted. That's part of the reason why I come out here on silent Sundays, because most Sundays of the month they actually close this to automobile traffic between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. and on the fourth Sunday of every month it's actually closed to automobile traffic the entire day, which is great. If you're going to come out here, bike, scoot, hike, walk, whatever, you don't have to worry about cars. Because I'll tell you right now, you know, people treat this place like, you know, a Formula One track. They just whip around these corners and you can hear tires screeching. Like, people are crazy. All right, we're gonna go ahead and make a left and head on down towards where we started. All right, we are clear. Nothing behind us. All right. You know, in terms of my foot position on this scooter, I got my front foot forward and my back foot on that kick plate. You know, for me, that gives me the most control over these scooters, especially when riding around at higher speeds and taking some of these curves in the road. This kind of riding, you definitely don't want to find yourself flat-footed, you know, on the deck. Coming into this turn. Once again, I'm very grateful that this scooter has a suspension, because these roads are getting a little more rough every year. Now, one thing I want to watch out for is a pothole. You got a couple potholes on the way down this mountain, and a lot of times they blend in with the shadows and you can't see them. You know, if I'm riding a bike, you know, I'm not as concerned with those, but a scooter with 10-inch tires, yeah, no thanks. I want to avoid potholes like the plague. Coming into these turns, I'm gonna switch over to these manual brakes. Oh, there's one of those potholes, almost rode right into that. Woo! And it's right in a turn too. It's like, it's bad enough going through a pothole, but going through a pothole in a turn, no thank you. All right, I'm gonna pull over here because there's some fantastic views here. Just make sure I don't go over this cliff. As you can see, we got beautiful views out there. You can see the road winding through the mountains and that little neighborhood community over there. We got our saguaro cacti all over the place, which it's my understanding it takes at least 100 years for these cacti to grow their first arm, and some of these things have multiple arms. Anyways, absolutely beautiful today. We got a lookout point up there. Yeah, so far so good with this Apollo City Pro. All right, back at it. Now for this section here, we're gonna have a lot of curves in the road, so I'm definitely gonna be taking full advantage of the manual brakes. Gives me a little bit of a better position on the handlebar. Woo! Tight turn here. And there's another pothole right there in the turn. Nice tight turn. Lean into that. Another one here. Nice little straightaway here. This is our home stretch. I don't know how well my regenerative braking test is going to look. I got the throttle all the way in. Taking advantage of this beautiful downhill section here. Nice smooth straightaway. I'm going to pull over to the side here in a moment and give you a nice view of what we just climbed. Alright folks, as you can see, that is South Mountain. Out in the distance, those are the antennas at the top. That's the mountain we just climbed with this Apollo City Pro 2024. So did an absolute fabulous job. Obviously we're not done, we still got a little ways to the car, but just wanted to give you an idea of what the surroundings look like. Lots of steep mountains here. Anyways, go ahead and continue on our journey, see how we end this ride. All right, off to the races. That's one thing I love about this scooter is it's got really solid acceleration. Lots of kick, especially when you turn those acceleration settings up in the app. Now this is yet another video in an entire video series that I've put together for this scooter. So if you want to see some of the other content I made on this, I'll include a link in the description below. We got some horses there to the right. I don't know if you can see them at this camera angle, but anyways, you know, if you do want to pick one of these scooters up, I will include a link in the description below. And if my content's been helpful in helping you make a decision, if you use that link as well as the coupon, absolutely helps support this channel, keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. But yeah, so far very impressed with this scooter. You know, if you're looking for a commuter scooter, you know, that's got dual motors and ample power, you know, to take you through really the most extreme of hill climbs, this Apollo City Pro definitely fits the bill. Not to mention, you know, it's also got that IP66 water resistance rating. So if you're, you know, riding around town and you happen to find yourself in a rainy situation, you should be good to go. You know, a lot of times scooters on the market have, you know, IP54, IP55 water resistance ratings, which will help protect against splashes, and with IP55 low pressure water jets. But these Apollo scooters, you know, kind of up the ante a little bit with IP66. It gives you peace of mind, because at the end of the day, you don't want water coming into the electrical components of your scooter. You know, that's a recipe for disaster. And another thing that I like about this scooter is the fact that it's got really good cable management. You don't have like a bird's nest of cables all over the place, and, you know, Joulette connectors and things like that. So it's very nice and streamlined for that kind of city riding. You know, you don't have to worry about rain and, you know, things like that, and getting these cables snagged on something. Right up and over that speed bump. And I'll say right now, like for most of my city riding, you know, when I'm not climbing, you know, mountains like this, I'll primarily use, you know, the electronic regenerative brake lever here on the left. My one ask of Apollo in future iterations of this scooter is maybe extend the length of this little electronic regenerative brake throttle. That way, you know, I don't have to move my hand over as much to engage that. It would make for a much more natural riding position. You know, at slower city cruising speeds, you know, that's not a big deal. I can reach it here. But ideally, I would have my hand over just a little bit more so I can fully take advantage of this cable actuated brake here if needed, but also be able to fully engage with that regenerative brake throttle. So just a suggestion. It works the way it is, but that'll further refine the riding experience, I think. All right, folks, so there you have it. That was our ride up Phoenix's South Mountain. On this particular ride, we went up 17.21 miles. We had an average moving speed of 20 miles an hour. We had a top speed of 30.2 miles an hour. Elevation gain, 1,952 feet, and we were riding around for an hour and 12 minutes. So as you can see, this Apollo City Pro made, you know, an easy task of climbing up this mountain. We did run into that controller overheating issue at the very end, literally, you know, probably less than a half mile from the very top, but nonetheless did an absolutely fantastic job. We gave it a few minutes to cool down, and you know, the rest was history. Working our way down the mountain, very stable scooter, very grateful that this thing does have a suspension. Definitely helped absorb a lot of that impact. But anyways, let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns in the comment section below. And as always, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.